Good morning, everyone. It's Tess, and today is tip 307. I figured I better get back on this. What I've been doing is, I mentioned probably earlier this week that I've been making sure that I'm pulling the books that I've been acquiring the past 2 years off the shelf and reading them. And right now I'm going through Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within. And there's a whole section that I'm going to use for probably the next today and 7 more days. So it was kind of a good way to go. And it's Tony Robbins talking about the only true success connects to emotional destiny. But he had 7 tips for creating the best life. And ironically, creating the best life is linked to everything that we've all been hearing, everything that we've been studying in Doc V, with Chris Noggle, with everybody. We do find that all these patterns repeat themselves. It's just maybe the more we introduce ourselves to it, the more we start to integrate it, the more we start to see changes, and the more we start to see life get better. So today all I'm going to do is kind of go over the 7 tips, and then in each of the coming days I'll talk about each one of the tips. And for 7 ways to shape your life, the first one he talked about is deliberate emotional control. Hi, Gina. Good to see you. And by talking about a deliberate emotional control, I'm going to say that was definitely a big one for me. I didn't realize a year ago, 2 years ago, how much I let stress and anxiety affect me, how much I tried to, what I thought was help other people, and what I ended up doing is creating conflict for myself that I didn't need. Zara Mahoon from Unlimited always says, I care, but not that much. And that might sound harsh, but what she's basically saying is that we have to heal inside. We have to work on inside. We have to feel good about ourselves. Because unfortunately, no matter how much you want to make somebody feel good, you can't make somebody else feel good. So that's really kind of a very first aha that we all have to get to. So I thought that number 1 tip from Tony Robbins. Well, good morning, John Clark. That number 1 tip from Tony Robbins, deliberate emotional control. You hear Doc V talk about emotions. You'll hear Law of Attraction talk about being in a happy mood place or a high emotional scale place, meaning joy, love, and happiness. And what tends to happen is if you if you learn that it feels good to be there, the people around you kind of follow suit. You either choose to be with people that are unhappy or you choose to be happy. And it's kind of, they say it's true, but what'll happen is people that like to feel discomfort will actually just stay away from you. And sometimes maybe that's not a bad thing. So our number 1 tip we'll talk about going forward is our emotions, because if we can control them, we can reduce anxiety and stress. I know sometimes people need intervention, but it helped me a lot to recognize that I had more anxiety and stress than I ever knew. And it was because I thought I was trying to help everybody else, and I can't make somebody else do something if they're not ready. Number 2, deliberate control of how you're fueling your body. And all of us in the challenge are definitely fighting that battle. And I'm going to say it's definitely one that I've had to learn about. Doc V always talks about, toxic people. Gina, you're right. Toxic people, when you're ready to step into a place of feeling good, I'll gladly give you the tools to feel good, because we all know meditation, journaling, appreciation, gratitude, that'll always make you feel good, but it's a choice. And number 2, his thought was deliberate fueling of the body. And I'm going to say this is really true. And Doc V confirmed something that I became suspicious of over the Thanksgiving weekend. He always talks about how diabetic people will take a diabetes pill so they can eat a piece of cake. And he said, if your body's not functioning, we shouldn't be eating the cake, because all we're doing is creating more drama inside of our own bodies. And I know that as I started to stop eating the junk and stop getting the processed foods, I was recognizing my energy level was different. I felt better. My bones weren't aching. So I noticed that probably right after I had surgery. So it's been about 5 years. And I started to even recognize which foods and what time of the day foods. Well, something happened over Thanksgiving that I was eating. I think I was just with my, we had a very small get together because we're in a high concentration state of active cases of COVID right now. But we had a very small get together. But I noticed I was picking, which I don't normally do. And all of a sudden I had this feeling, and I'm like, wow, is that like acid coming up in your esophagus. So I kind of said in group this week, I go, Doc Vito, it's kind of like if you eat too much, you can actually cause yourself acid reflux. And he kind of shook his head, yes. So it kind of made me wonder, how much are we doing that we don't even realize? And how many times are we, good morning, Glenn, good to see you. How many times are we letting ourselves be medicated so we can continue bad behavior? So I thought it was interesting because this is Tony Robbins' book, but it supports everything Doc V and everybody else we connect with says. So number one, we got to control our emotions. We want to be happy and joyful because it feels good. We make better decisions. That's where the affirmations come in that Doc V talks about. Then we control how we fuel our bodies because our bodies react to what we give them. And we might want to think about if we can make better food choices to get rid of medicines, that might be a good choice. The third one is relationships. And I think relationships become better too. And when you start to put yourself in a place with feeling good, then the people around you tend to feel good. And that's why we are attracted to people who feel good. The other part that he talked about that, and I'll talk about it when I do day 3, because I'll cover each one of those in the coming days. But the other thing he talked about is learning other people's absolutes. What are their absolute requirements for a friendship? That way you can help mend some of the rifts between people. Because like he said, he had a friend that required a true friend to contact him 2 days a week. So if people have absolutes, understanding what their absolutes are will help you to strengthen relationships. Number 4, Doc V, Chris Nagel, they'll all tell you the same thing, financial future. If your finances are struggling, then we struggle and we don't feel good about ourselves. We make bad choices. We get frustrated. We're unhappy. So that goes in line. And then number 5 is, are you living life or are you letting life happen to you? And I think that's back to that choice. Are we victim or are we going to say, well, and I've heard it referred to like, are you just going to dust it off and just keep moving forward? And it may be hard sometimes, and especially when you're first starting to change that, everything goes bad for me. And I used to kind of feel that way about myself. When you start to shift out of that, it may be uncomfortable. It may be that you're expanding your comfort circle, but when you use the appreciation, the journaling, the gratitude, the positive, the prayers, all of that, you can push yourself into that place where you start to feel good. And when you start living your life, in control of your life, it feels better. You don't feel like the victim. And all of these before items that he listed as part of the 7 will get you to a point where you are living your life purposefully instead of somebody feeling like you're a victim of what's happening. Because if you know, like for me, if I know that I'm going to eat this and I'm going to feel bad about it, I don't want to feel like the victim if I get, a day or 2 down the line. I have to stop and go, oh, I ate that. I knew my body wouldn't agree with it. I'm not a victim. I'll just make a better choice next time. So eliminating that victim part of it, I think is great. Yeah, here's Gina. Love living life. Letting it happen can make you turn into the victim. Yes, and we want to be purposeful. We want to say, hey, and small things, don't overwhelm yourself, because all of a sudden you look back and you're like, wow, look at all the progress I've made. I feel I've made as much progress. I've made more progress in 2 years than I made in the first 5 years after surgery. So it's possible, one little step at a time. His number 6 was time. He wanted to talk about time and the misconceptions of time, and that we all think we're out of time. And Doc V talks about this too. Time is like an arbitrary thing. We just have to start doing things, even in 5, and maybe that's what it is. We go down to 5-minute increments. I'm just going to read for 5 minutes. I'm just going to do this for 5 minutes. I'm just going to cut off 5 minutes of the time I watch TV. We've labeled things as a time management thing. And instead of focusing so much time on trying to focus on redoing and doing the schedule, maybe spend 5 minutes on the schedule and 5 minutes doing a task that can get you moving forward and feeling. And I was guilty of that. I was analysis paralysis, where I try to plan everything out and have every possible resolution, and then I get stuck and I wouldn't move forward. So I'm interested to see what more he has to say on that as I get into those days, because I'm going to cover each of these 7 tips on a separate day going forward. His number 7 was, you also got to rest and play. So I thought this was a great thing. And again, it's the Tony Robbins Awaken the Giant, because what I'm trying to do is make sure that Because I'm one of those people, I want to pick up a book and I want to read it from start to finish. And then I get frustrated if I feel like I don't have enough time for it. And that's one of the things he's talking about here. So what I decided is I'm just going to pick up a book and I'm going to open it to a section and just kind of span a little bit. And when something catches my eye, then that's something I need to focus on for myself. And since I always have to have a topic for these, I thought, well, I may as well use them to help me move forward and kind of keep myself moving forward. And this one really talked to me. The only true success is when we kind of control it. That's scary for a lot of us and we don't know the tools, but I thought what he put together was good, and it fully supports everything Doc V's told us. It fully supports all the people we've met through the connection with him, and maybe it'll just give us one little thing each day to move on. So just to sum up those 7 things that I'm going to talk about in the coming 7 days, these are Tony Robbins' 7 days to shaping your life. And the first one is deliberate emotional control. The second one is deliberate control of fueling your body, recognizing that when you fuel it wrong and it doesn't feel good, you've got to own that. You can't blame it on someone else. Number 3, successful relationships. In feeling good, they're more successful. And in understanding the rules that maybe your circle has that you don't even recognize will also help you improve those relationships. Number 4, financial future. Doc V, Chris Nagel, they all talk about that. So that's a good one. Number 5, are you living your life purposefully or are you feeling like a victim? Number 6, the time management thing that everybody talks about. He wants to address that. Maybe it's about moving forward. Maybe spend half the time on organizing your time and half of what you would have spent organizing your time doing something to move you forward. And then number 7 is all parts of life, rest and play. So I thought these were great tips. Again, Tony Robbins, Awaken the Giant. I just am trying to be purposeful and making sure that I'm at least reaching my hands into all the materials I've gained in the past year. I've never been disappointed in anything that I've read, and I just have to keep moving forward. Oh, you're welcome, Gina. And I'll be talking about them in the days to come, because for all of us, we're going to make this world better, and maybe in feeling good ourselves, we can make others feel good too. Thank you, and you guys have a beautiful, beautiful Friday.